When we look at the Catholic Church and its decline in recent years, less young people going, less people signing up for a religious life, and since you could say the 60s.
Well, if it's all guitar and hippies, who the hell cares?
But since Vatican II, let's say in the 60s, the Church has been aiming to be more relevant, more welcoming. So what's the problem?
That's not working.
Catholicism is experiencing a greater net loss due to religious switching than any other religious tradition in America. For every one person who becomes Catholic, 6.5 leave. The Catholic Church has a problem. And Jordan Peterson was asked about that problem. And you might ask, well, why should we care about his answer? Right now, he is currently helping more people, especially men, understand why belief in God and religious practice is important. He doesn't preach the what, he explores the why. And this appeals to men as evident by the masses of men that follow him. If the Catholic Church is going to stop the bleeding, it needs to win over, not just men, but real men. Here's Jordan Peterson's answer, and then I'll finish with what I mean by this. Check this out.
When we look at the Catholic Church and its decline in recent years, less young people going, less people signing up for a religious life, and since you could say the 60s.
Well, if it's all guitar and hippies, who the hell cares?
But since Vatican II, let's say in the 60s, the Church has been aiming to be more relevant, more welcoming. So what's the problem?
That's not working. It's shallow, obviously. Shallow and contemptible. You know, it's supposed to be an invitation to the great adventure of life. What's the great adventure of life? Pick up your cross and follow me. Like, that's a hell of an invitation, but that's the invitation. And the Church lost faith in that. We have to be relevant. Well, what's more relevant than that? As soon as you say that you need to be more relevant than that, what you're doing technically is putting something else above that. Well, that's not going to work, not if the original proposition was correct. And obviously the original proposition is correct. You might say, well, why obviously? Okay, well, Christ faced and triumphed over death and hell. And you might say, well, why is that relevant? And the answer is, because that's what you have to do. Right, and everyone, you're stuck with it.
So is the Catholic Church not challenging people enough?
Definitely not enough, not by any stretch of the imagination. The gateway to paradise is barred by the cherubs who have swords that flame and turn every which way. Well, what does that mean? It means it's hard to get into the club, man. Anything that isn't worthy gets cut and burned away. Well, of course, that's hell, especially if you resist it. Really. And there's no sugarcoating that, and that isn't what people want anyways. Young people want an adventure. Why the hell do you think they're so concerned with saving the planet, which Pope Francis seems to be on about constantly, when he should be saving souls? That's how you save the planet, not by worshipping Gaia.
Do you think Pope Francis puts the emphasis in the wrong places sometimes?
Well, I gave you that example. I don't see, for the life of me, what the Catholic Church has to do with climate crisis. Just the formulation is wrong. The priority is wrong. You save the world one person at a time. It lacks faith in its own mission.
What is most relevant and important to every single person is the best way to live that leads to life in full. As Peterson says, like Christ, every one of us must face and triumph over sin, death, and hell. It's the most relevant thing for all of us. We are not talking about an arbitrary set of rules for a medieval people. It's not a statement of facts, a creed to state with your mouth, or a once-a-week obligation. We are talking about the best way to live, objectively, that leads to human thriving, life in full for individuals and society. The Church is supposed to be the last line of defense in this world. It's the protector of this ideal way to live. It's the bearer of the good and truth that we have to look to in this degenerating world, and it cannot stand without its men. The research is clear that the biggest determining factor as to whether a child remains in their faith is the faith of their father. Get this, when a woman converts to Christianity, 17% of the time, the whole family converts. But when a man converts to Christianity, 93% of the time, the whole family converts. Catholicism is 46% men and 54% women. But only 35% of Catholic men attend church weekly. 26% of men consider themselves practicing Catholics. The Church is failing to sell the adventure to men and is therefore failing. The church was built by adventurous, courageous, risk-taking, creative, and the best and brightest men. Many of them even died for it. So what happened? According to research done by Notre Dame, 70 to 90% of religious education, service, and Bible study activities in the Catholic Church are done by women. The majority of people in the pews at church on Sunday are women, and the majority of the men that the church does have to lead it aren't real men. The priesthood is infested with either homosexual men or men who can't get women. Like, it's not virtuous to take a vow of celibacy if you can't get a woman. How can the church ever appeal to men when it's embarrassing for men to associate themselves with it? This is ultimately the problem. However, the good news is that the solution requires a certain generation of men to step up and save it. And herein lies the duty and adventure needed to attract the right men. At certain points throughout history, a generation has been called to reform the church when it has drifted off course. That time is now, and Jordan Peterson will play a very important role in that.